You guys can tell me I'm stupid. They're not these 8-pack, super svelte, haughty aliens. 5 stars, of course. I mean, did you really expect it to be anything else?
I hate it.
Okay. Hey guys, what's going on? I hope you're doing well. It's time to actually do my May wrap up. And I hinted at it in my last video during my book tag, but there's a character that I read that I totally want to kill. So I have a lot to vent about. That book I honestly wish I never read. It literally rivals the other worst book that I've read this year, the Heartless Heathens one I talked to you guys about, that asked the girl to literally hang herself to prove her love. It rivals that. So I'm gonna complain about it. I'm gonna bitch a little bit. I'm gonna leave that one till the end. But I do have some other ones. I have 6 books in total here. Quite a few of them are just like kooky, weird. One of them being an Alice in Wonderland retelling that was a trip. Okay, that was a total trip. And then, of course, we'll just start now. The Mate Games, Book 2, Mate Games Pestilence, 5 stars, of course. I mean, did you really expect it to be anything else? I love that series. You guys know that. I listened to it again. It just keeps on hitting, man. Honestly, Series 2 I think is better than Series 1. All of the books in Series 1 I didn't rate 5 stars. Only the last book I think I rated 5 stars. So the second series, they're coming out hitting, man. That's all I'm saying. You should read it. It's on KU for free if you have the subscription. Or, in my opinion, do Audible on it. So that's all I'll say. Enough of that. But moving on. The next one, I honestly, it's a very popular book. I don't want to say I DNF'd it because I do realize it's for a really stupid reason, but I didn't realize that I was this triggered from stuff that happened to me junior year of high school. But Rhapsodic by Laura Talisa, I think that's how you say it. That's the book where you have the siren who does something bad, and that's how she meets the bargainer who basically takes care of her situation and gives her a bead as an IOU, something she's going to have to repay later. And the whole storyline is supposed to be how she's done all of these things, calling on the bargainer, and she has all of these beads, essentially making a giant bracelet around her arm, and all of the ways she's going to have to repay him. That's supposed to be the storyline. Cool, I can get behind that, but I was only a couple chapters in, and I started flipping through it, and I realized that every other chapter is flashback, and I can't handle it. It triggered me. I got so angry. You guys can tell me I'm stupid, but in junior year, we had to read The Grapes of Wrath, and every other chapter was about the damn turtle crossing the road. I got so angry. It makes no sense. It just brought flashbacks for me to that, and I just couldn't continue on, so I stopped it. I have no want to pick it back up because I don't want to do flashbacks. I learned that about myself, but I also know that this book a lot of people love. So I don't know if I'm just being a little bitch, okay? And I need you guys to tell me if I am. Maybe if enough of you say I am, maybe I'll read it, but I have no want. I am so, it literally makes me angry thinking about it. It makes me think of the turtle. And they're not related in any way, but it's just, I can't explain my brain, but that's where I'm at with that. So I stopped it, and that's that. Okay, but since it literally made me that angry, stuff like that will make me want to stop reading, and then I get into a book slump. So the way I get out of it, my little tip to you guys is to read comedic smut, or something that's so terribly bad, but it's meant to be comedic, that it makes you just crave a good book after. So I went for the comedic smut, and I was watching April from Happily Ever April. It was one of her wrap-ups. I don't remember which month it was, but she was talking about this book that just sounded insane, and it has a ridiculously long name, so I need my notes here. But it's literally called How My Boring Life Was Completely Derailed, and I Was Absolutely Railed by 2 Big Blue Alien Dudes from Outer Space. That sounded like the perfect medicine that I needed to get myself happy again after Rhapsodic. So I read that. It's literally a quick, short, stupid little read. It's content. It's not literature. It's stuff you don't take seriously. It's literally meant to just put a smile on your face and make you laugh. But the whole storyline, it's a quick read on KU where you have a girl who, she's a gas station attendant. She gets abducted, all right? Well, abducted? What's the word? She gets beamed up and she's in front of the king, the alien king. And in their culture, all of them are just like big, robust dudes. They're not these 8-pack, super svelte, haughty aliens, all right? They're heavy-set dudes and they're blue and they got like orange hair. So they're funky looking, honestly. Like they're not described in a way where you're just like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But they're talking to one another. She's of course scared. But then while they're talking, she realizes that he's the guy she's talking to on her dating app. Because apparently aliens, you know, they struggle with dating so much too that they got to jump on human dating apps. You know? That's what's going on. So they kind of come together. She basically has a mindset of just it and let's have a good time. So they start railing. And then this other guy, basically his second in command, his commander of his troops, they're actually kind of in love. So he comes to the room and he jumps into the fray. There's weird sorts of contraptions that are involved and they're just going at it. To a point, I like this, so I'm going to spoil this a little bit here, but to a point where she's just like so tired. He's like, don't worry. I remember what you had on your profile, your dating profile. I'll go get you some chicken pho. How thoughtful. I would love pho. I thought that was great. That made me laugh. But then they just go back to railing and she chooses to go back to Earth and then they come down to Earth and they rail some more. So that's it. That's the story. I mean, I kind of gave a lot of it away except for the smutty parts, but it's smut, so I told you the storyline, but I did not give you the details, if you know what I mean. So, it's kooky. It's weird. I gave it like 3.5 stars. I don't know. I feel like we could have pushed it further, made it a little more comedic, but it was a good time. So, that's what I rated it, and that's what I'm sticking with. So, moving on, the next one that I read was actually another sci-fi one because the getting railed by 2 big blue alien dudes. That one was actually the first alien romance I ever read. So I started being like, this is intriguing. Maybe I should give one a little bit more serious a try. And I found this, which I love this cover, but it's called Ardently Abducted. And it's a sci-fi romance meets historical romance, but it's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So I'm in, man. I'm freaking in. The first sentence is literally like she took the first sentence of Pride and Prejudice, the very classic, well-known line, and she added a little sci-fi spice to it, you know? So I thought it was fun. Again, I would argue this one's a little bit more content than it is like literature and like a storyline with character arcs and themes and all that jazz. But this is a really good book to read. It's short. It's on KU. But if you're having like a rough day and you're just like down in the dumps or like you've just been like working all day, you're tired, you just need to like sit down, chill, get a smile on your face, maybe giggle a little bit, this is a good book to read, in my opinion. Especially if you're a historical romance reader. I think it would be a fun time. Or you're a classics reader for Pride and Prejudice. But it's the classic Pride and Prejudice storyline, except we have 2 human girls that were abducted by aliens and then by bad aliens actually, and they were cryogenically like asleep, and then the good aliens come, wake them up, at least these 2, and they tell them that they really need to mate and repopulate their species, and they found out that humans are the ones that they can actually populate with. All right, but they want consent and they want there to be like good courting practices. So they put these machines on their head to figure out how men would actually court female humans, okay? And these particular girls love historical romances, and that's all the stuff they're thinking about. They're thinking about the balls and what happens in the shadows or in the corner of the balls, or what happens when you're in a carriage without a chaperone, and things like that. So this is a spicy, kind of smutty book. Not super smut, but kind of smutty book. But they start basically going through all of that stuff, creating balls, but you have aliens in like traditional garb, like Victorian England garb. You have the ball gowns, all of that stuff. So you're mixing the pride and prejudice of Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth and how they interact with one another and their banter and very particular scenes, like how he won't dance with her. And then you have the historical romance, Victorian England, the season, the balls, the ball gowns, all that jazz. So it's fun. It's lighthearted. Don't take it seriously. You'll have a good time. I'd recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like it was rushed. We could have drawn it out a little bit more. But it's a really good read if you just need a pick-me-up. You know, you've had a hard day. You need to feel better. So there's that. I really wanted to share that one. I think people should read it. But anyways, moving on. Talking about cool covers and just like artwork. I'm a sucker for artwork. I will literally, and this is the epitome of this, I will literally see a cover, not read the synopsis, and just jump right in because I'm in love with the art so much. And that's what happened with this one. I basically did that girly thing where I was just like, ooh, it's pretty. And I just picked it up. I rented it from KU and I just jumped right in. But honestly, from the cover, you can let me know if you agree. From the cover, with how gorgeous it is and obviously how much work went into that, I didn't think this was going to be smut. Okay, and this is like serious smut. This isn't like comedic, kooky smut. This was smut, all right? It was weird smut. But I thought this was just going to be an Alice in Wonderland retelling, probably fantasy romance, some sort of reimagining. I figured a little spice because it popped up on my For You page on Amazon. I actually did see this cover on Instagram a while ago, though. But I was assuming it's going to be a fantasy romance story. Little spice, but going to have a plot, right? Well, I guess there is a plot, but like this book's hard to really judge, honestly, because I didn't read the synopsis, which is my own damn fault. But because I had the wrong idea of going into it, that's what makes it hard for me to actually judge it. Because I think if I actually knew that it was smut, I would have a higher rating. So I'm just saying 3 stars for right now, keeping it in the middle. But there is actually some really cool plot lines in here that I wish was really like developed more. But this was more of like you had a couple sentences of some really intriguing things for a storyline, but then it was just completely overshadowed by smut. So that was an unfortunate thing. But it is it's a kooky story. But essentially we have Alice, who's a human, and she has all this money. She goes to the den of debauchery, which is run by the Cheshire Cat, who has a little, he has a little thing for our girl here, for Alice. But essentially what he does in his den of debauchery is he kind of has enslaved the other characters, like the caterpillar, who used to be his business partner, but he enslaved him. And they're kind of hookers for him. So, and this happens right in the beginning, you guys. But Alice comes with a bunch of money, pays a Cheshire Cat so she can sleep with the caterpillar. All right? And like, these aren't really shifters. Like, they're very much, he's very much an insect. Cheshire Cat's very much a cat. All right? And they have weird anatomy, and it's weird. Alice, it literally mentions that she's so intrigued by the caterpillar and his, like, velvety body and all of his ridges of his entire body, not what you're thinking. And that she's just so enticed by the idea of, like, insects crawling on her. Okay? It's weird. It's really weird. But she goes to him. He definitely has that very classic caterpillar sort of personality of just like looking down his nose at you. But she has a tryst with him, but then the Cheshire Cat kind of tricks her into essentially being his own personal hooker. But he's kind of slowly, there's more of a slow burn, not really a slow burn, of their relationship. But the whole story is, the underlying story, I should say, because it's not fully developed, is Alice doesn't really have memories, and there's a reason for that. And the caterpillar and the Cheshire Cat are on completely different sides as to whether she should know her memories or if she should always forget her memories because it's going to be too traumatizing. So you have your good boy, bad boy tropes here, but you don't really know who's the good one, who's the bad one, what memories she actually has, what actually has happened to her, because she's not exactly who you think she is. That's all I'm going to say, because in case you read it, but you'll see what I mean if you do. But it actually is really interesting. They have the tea parties, you have the brown hair, you have the Mad Hatter. there's some neat concepts, man. That's a trip. It's a total trip, which makes sense for the Alice in Wonderland. So I was so intrigued that the author did some incredibly creative things, but they're only little like crumbs within the story instead of being fully fleshed out, which I totally think she could have done if she removed kind of a lot of the smut, in my opinion, and really like injected it with that plot that you could see is there. I think it would have been a really, really cool Alice in Wonderland retelling. I really, really do. There was a lot of aspects that were really neat. So it's hard for me to say if you should actually read it or not, if I'm being honest. If you read it, all I'm going to say is that you need to go in knowing that this is smut. And it's kind of weird smut. It's not meant to be comedic smut. Like there's going to be weird anatomy. There's a lot to it. Like you're definitely going to have male on male. You're going to have MFM, so male, female, and male. So you're going to have group scenes. You're going to have male scenes. You're going to have male and female scenes. You're going to have a lot of it. You're going to have weird anatomy. You're going to have weird these things that happen. Okay, so just you need to go in with that mindset. I really wish the plot was really just drawn out in that though. It would have been so cool, man. It would have been so cool. But anyways, I digress. I will carry on. All right, so the last one now. This is the one that I was telling you about in the beginning that I wish I never read. I'm going to give you a warning now. I'm completely going to spoil it. I don't recommend you read it, but I'm completely going to spoil this book. I'm going to vent about it because I need to, honestly. It's literally the darkest thing I've ever read. I don't know about the darkest, but it's freaking up there. And I don't feel like it was handled tactfully. So I'm going to spoil it. So if you don't like that, jump off. This is Shattered Glass, Snow White retelling. But on top of that, I would also recommend you jump off this video if you struggle at all with trigger warnings, especially like related to abuse, both physical and mental, and also this. I am going to be talking about this. This is in the book quite a bit. So if that's going to be hard for you to handle, just jump off, okay? Just jump off. Anyways, so now that that's done, as far as this book goes, again, it's Shattered Glass, Snow White retelling. Very, very dark Snow White retelling that I was honestly so excited for. This was one I brought up in my fairy tale video where I found it and I was like, oh my God, this sounds like it's going to be perfect for me because there's gore, there's mind control, there's cannibalism, what else? There's other stuff, torture, all sorts of stuff that I'm like, okay, I can get behind this, all right? I didn't realize how dark someone could go, I guess. And I will say this, I think I realized how dark I'm willing to go. I read this book, which is a testament to the author in the sense that I hated it. I think this is one of the worst books I've ever read, and I don't recommend you read it, but I did finish it. And I think part of that has to do with I was so shocked by the themes in her book and what she did talk about, which I do think was a problem and she didn't handle tactfully. And then also just the way that it was written. There's so many things just randomly thrown in there that is just wild. Basically, I would have to like put my book down and I would just start laughing like, are you kidding? Why? Why is this in there? This makes no sense. So I'm gonna bitch a little bit. Sorry, this is a Bitch Llama production. Prepare yourself. So I'm not trying to go after the author whatsoever, but this book did make me have a lot of feelings. So I'm going to talk about those feelings. Firstly, dark romance, insanely dark, gory, yes, which was something I'm into, but the torture and this was a lot. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think it's bad to have these things in a book as an author. I think that's a testament to you as an author if you actually talk about these things that really have to do with the human psyche and kind of push those boundaries. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that can actually be really neat and getting the reader to kind of think about those topics themselves and choosing what's immoral and moral and where that line lies in different situations and scenarios. So I don't mind that, but I feel passionately about this. I think you have to handle those situations with tact, okay? And I do not feel that way with this. I think it was handled very poorly. I will start off with this. This scene, okay? I think there should have been a trigger warning. It did mention that this was going to happen, but I think it should have been much more clear that this is going to happen between a father and his daughter, who is still very much a minor and is like 11 or 12 years old. It's with Snow White. And you're going to read the scene. It's not mentioned. You are going to read it. And it's in 3 different chapters and 3 different perspectives. Okay? So that should have been blatantly stated. All right? You didn't have to tell me what characters, but I think that should have been blatantly stated. Secondly, that scene is really hard to deal with. So as a reader, it's hard to get through that scene. But I don't mind that it was there. I don't think it should have been in 3 chapters and you have to reread it 3 perspectives. I really, really don't think you need to do that. But the problem that I have with that is that happened, and that's a major moment, and that changes someone, and that's going to affect how they're going to view life and how they're going to interact with people. And that was not really reflected later on in the story. So it felt like that was just purely there to shock you. There was really no point for you to read that because all the other stuff was enough to explain why Snow White was the way that she was. This literally was purely there to shock you, which pisses me off to no end. You shouldn't make someone read that if you can't actually make that make sense and actually be incorporated into her as a character. Instead, the guy, the love interest, the prince, who was there at the time holding her hands to provide support, but he didn't do anything. That's a different thing. He was there. He knows what she went through. He watched her go through all that stuff. He was literally a guard for Snow White. And he comes along later. He left her to go get strong, and he ends up being a shifter and whatever. So he finally comes back to her. He's been gone forever. She's mad, feels like he left her. Makes a ton of sense. Literally says, "Don't touch me." But him, because he's a shifter and he's found his mate and whatever, he literally goes up to her, literally within the first 5 minutes of coming back, and presses his body up against her and is smirking and be like, we don't have to do this now, but just wait, in time, you'll be mine. Very sexual, very much not giving her a choice. And he was there, and he should have respected that stuff. He should have known that. I feel like that should have been written into the damn character. Snow White, she said that whole thing of you don't touch me, all that stuff. Makes sense. This is where I think the character is going to be going. It's going to be harder to get close to her, which would make their love, their relationship, much more interesting to read. But no, 2 pages later, she's like, oh, maybe I was too hard on him, and he is hot. Whoa! What? Like, it killed me. It killed me. So any sort of character arc there or adding that into her background, nixed. Completely nixed. And the evil queen adds another layer to this darkness because her father is the one who provided that physical abuse there. But the evil queen, she literally, she rips out people's hearts. She's eating it. She forces them to essentially go down on her, which literally had no freaking purpose and was, again, there just to shock you. This book, it has some spice to it, by the way, but it's not a ton. But that was just there to shock you. She tortures Snow White, and when I mean torture, she tortures her. Like, she's ripping skin. You're gonna, have things where her skin is, falling off, all the scarring, what she does to her hair, things like that. It's intense. It's a lot, and you're going to read that. So it's very, 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 very dark. I just really want to get that across. But the evil queen, she literally, the way she was written is she's just purely evil. She's really, really cruel. Okay, fine. She's gory. Okay, cool. I can get behind that. But you need to write in either some relatability or give the reader some understanding as to why an evil character is the way that they are. Otherwise, they're just very boring to read. And you're just kind of like, okay, you're just going to do some evil shit. Let's move on to something more interesting in the story. So that bugged the hell out of me. I don't like the way that she was written. I don't like the things that she did because it was purely just there to shock. So I felt like the author could have done better with that. Again, I'm really not trying to make fun of the author, give shit to the author. I gotta vent. I gotta talk about this. But moving on. So that's kind of all of the dark aspects of this book, and it's a lot. But then you throw on top of it that the whole story structure is just terrible. Okay? The pacing is terrible. The story structure is terrible. We're just adding all of these different fairy tale characters and different mythology because it's just, honestly, the impression that I got was that the author, this is her first time writing fantasy romance, but not her first time writing. I got the impression of anything that she ever thought was cool in fantasy romance, or anything that sounds fantastical, really, she just threw into the book. But she didn't actually make it make sense at all. At all. There is world building in the sense of you can kind of see where Snow White is coming from, but there's no world building in the sense of like the religious aspect of this or other characters who are in this. It's just randomly thrown in at different spots in the book. So it doesn't tie together. You're just kind of, every time you come across a new character, you're like, why? I don't understand. So we have the whole Snow White thing, but then the Beast comes in from Beauty and the Beast, so we have a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast aspect. The dwarves, by the way, are not the dwarves you're used to. These are women. They're the Valkyrie from Norse mythology who have been cursed to now be dwarves. But you still have the 7 male dwarves who are also minors, but they're completely unrelated to Snow White. You have Captain Hook. You have the Oracle, which is like more Greek mythology stuff. King Triton is mentioned. Robin Hood comes in, Merlin comes in. I feel like I'm missing stuff. But then you add in, we already know we have Norse mythology with the Valkyrie, but then Thor's gonna come in along with some of his other like brothers for gods. And then more Greek mythology stuff comes in because we have like the traditional ferryman with the black cloak and he's a skeleton. And then we have Egyptian mythology because she goes to the underworld and she meets Osiris and Anubis, and we find out that she's the granddaughter of Osiris, which now gives her the Hercules storyline. So it's literally all over the place. All over the place. The beginning starts good in the sense of you can clearly see this is Snow White, but then all these other random things just come in, which could have been cool if it was executed correctly. I would have loved it. Like a Once Upon a Time thing, like the show, would have loved it. But it's just freaking randomly everywhere, and you read it, and the characters come in and they do stuff, but it has nothing to do with the plot. So your time is just wasted as a reader reading that stuff. It literally adds no substance at all. So it just felt like she didn't know what she was doing or what she wanted to do. She also finds out, Snow White finds out when she goes to the underworld and talks to Osiris, her granddaddy. She finds out that she's totally going to beat Morana. So when she goes back up there, also as the reader, you're kind of like, well, what's the point of reading? I already know she's going to win. So, and then our guy, the prince, like I mentioned, he goes to the Beast, finds out he's a lost prince, and he's actually a shifter. But it doesn't come in until he's 18, and he turns into this thing where it's like a ram eagle lion, but literally the purpose of like having the horns and the tail, it's just so he can do some weird stuff sexually. Okay, so it's like, it's all over the place. It's dark to an insane place. Then the writing is just not great. You can tell like she can write. I will say that. She doesn't seem like an amateur writer, but she definitely appears to be amateurish with fantasy romance. I can tell she has skill with choosing words. I fully admit that. Full on props for that. But the story structure, the world building, like it was all over the place. I hated it. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to stop bitching now. I'm going to overdo it, but don't read it. If you're still here listening to me bitch, thanks. Thank you. But yeah, I don't recommend it. I gave it 2 stars, but I kind of feel like that's too high. So I don't know what the hell I'm smoking because so many people gave it over 4 stars, both on Goodreads and on Amazon. So I don't know what I'm smoking, but I hated it. I hated it. I thought the concept was cool. I think it needed better execution, man. I really, really did. So, anyways, June's going to be better. I'm in Once Upon a Readathon right now, so I'm reading a bunch of crazy stuff. I'm reading a bunch of novellas and kind of some comedic smut, and then some that is just not comedic, which is not my thing, but I'm trying to get points. So it's been wild, but it's been better than after reading The Shattered Glass, I'll tell you that much. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I hope you found maybe some kooky books in this video that maybe resonated with you and you want to go check out. Again, pretty much everything I think was on KU, so awesome. But anyways, I will catch you guys later and you have a great rest of your week. Bye.